Hello, I'm Joseph Giunta, the music director of the Des Moines Symphony and Academy, and we are delighted to welcome you to the 2016-2017 season, an Ode to Joy. This is a symphony in itself, really. It's a miniature symphony. It's in 4 parts. It starts out with the most beautiful cello quintet. The second part is this storm section, which is very lively and melodramatic. The third part is the calm after the storm, the sunset, sunrise, played by the beautiful English horn and flute. And then you have the gallop at the end, the wonderful gallop that everyone knows, of course, is the Lone Ranger theme. There's a great story about the young Rossini at 30 years old meeting the elder statesman Beethoven. Rossini had already had some success with his opera buffa, comic opera in Italy. And Beethoven, of course, was the great master of the most renowned and serious composer of all time in Vienna. And after that meeting, Beethoven said to a friend of his that Rossini's music makes people laugh, my music, Beethoven's music, makes people cry. And he said, I wish I could write music that makes people smile. Rossini heard that quote years later and took that as a great compliment of Beethoven, that not only did the great master see him, but also said that, you know, this young man's got a great future ahead of him. Johann Sebastian Bach and Beethoven on the same program, the only other person that maybe could fit into that category would be Stravinsky. These are the 3 composers that not only were great composers of their time, but also changed the way we thought about music and talked about music and criticized music and wrote about music. So I put Rossini on instead of Stravinsky because of the relationship and that meeting that I just talked about between Rossini and Beethoven. But Bach certainly is one of the most prolific composers even to the current day. If you walk into a music library and it's a 4-square room and you have the collected editions of every composer, one of those walls will be the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. That's how much music he wrote. The reason for that is that he had to write new music every Sunday. He was a church musician, and therefore every Sunday there had to be some new music in front of this choir and in front of this orchestra. That's how he made his living. He had all those children to support, so over 20 kids that he had. So he was very much a working man's composer. And he was a virtuoso keyboardist, and most of his life was either spent working for the church or working for the aristocrats. He had a lot of aristocratic friends that would come to the churches that he was involved in. And one of them was Christian Ludwig, who was the Margrave of Brandenburg. And he became friends and decided that he would dedicate these 6 Brandenburg concertos. Now, the music historians feel that these 6 pieces are some of the greatest Baroque music ever written, certainly some of the greatest music that Bach ever wrote. Each one has a story in its own. They have a different instrumentation, and they were primarily composed for the best musicians of the day, which would be probably like a community orchestra in the United States today, because musicians just didn't have that much technique in those days. But Bach wrote all these little chamber pieces mainly for a small string section, and then maybe a trumpet, maybe one oboe, maybe a flute, maybe a violin, and in this case, a virtuoso piece for harpsichord, violin, flute, and then a small little orchestra beside that. Jonathan Sturm, our concertmaster, and Kayla Berghoff, our principal flutist, and this wonderful harpsichordist visiting us from Iowa City, Gregory Hand. The first movement of this Bach concerto is like a harpsichord concerto, and we're delighted to have Gregory join us for this concert. There's one other thing I want to say about the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. If any of you ever get up in the morning and feel a little blue, all you have to do is put on one piece of music for 10 minutes by Johann Sebastian Bach. Yo-Yo Ma playing the unaccompanied cello suites, or Heifetz playing the unaccompanied Bach suites. 10 minutes of that, you're going to feel much better. And even if it's cloudy out, the sun's going to come out of those clouds, because that's just what the music of Bach does for you. What I can tell you about my experience with the Beethoven 9 Symphony is that every time I conduct it, I feel that I'm in the presence of greatness, and I feel that it has a message that continues to be generous, that continues to engage the public over and over and over again. It's no secret that this piece has been used for major political events, the Berlin Wall coming down in 1989. The Japanese play it every New Year's Eve because it represents a symphony of the people. So it has one of these messages that just continues to resonate with our world, and in today's world it's even more important, I think, than it's ever been. Beethoven, in his first movement, he writes this simple but hefty motive that starts out in D minor, and what he does is he compresses this theme. So it starts out from nothing, this piece, beautifully pianissimo in Italian called sottovoce, half voice, and in 16 measures, virtually 20 seconds, he goes from nothing to something that is absolutely bombastic and monumental. That's what sets the piece up. The second movement is what Richard Wagner called a miracle of monotony. He takes this incessant rhythm of da 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 and continues to play it over and over and over and over again, which drives all of us crazy. But the point is that he's trying to get people excited about the emphatic nature of music, and that's basically the scherzo movement that he has developed. This is a trademark of Beethoven. In the Seventh Symphony, that kind of rhythm. In the first movement of the Fifth Symphony, all those eighth notes, those are all small rhythmic motives that are developed time after time after time and create a great piece. That's the genius of Beethoven. The third movement, one of the most beautiful, stirring, and soulful prayers you'll ever find. It's solemn, it's a beautiful adagio, it's one of the most gorgeous adagios that Beethoven or anyone else ever wrote. The last movement breaks all form of nothing has ever been written like the last movement. It starts out with this bombastic chord dissonance, ugly dissonance, and then Beethoven, he quotes the first movement and then brings back the lower strings, and then the second movement and brings back the lower strings, then the third movement again brings back the lower strings, and finally morphs into this beautiful theme that we know as the Ode to Joy. That then ensues towards soloists and chorus and everything else and brings the piece to a great finale. There's no piece that I know of that is more monumental, more important, more astounding, and more stunning to listen to conduct, to hear, to play than this piece of music. Well, every time I conduct the Beethoven Ninth Symphony, it's a new work to me. I've been very privileged in my life to, over the last 40 years, conduct it about every 5 years, and that's the perfect way to not only learn a piece, but to develop your own style and to learn how the musicians respond to you in terms of our gestures. All of those 300 plus heartbeats to beat as one. There's never a time that I've conducted the Beethoven Ninth Symphony that I didn't think that I was in the presence of greatness. And it's like seeing a great play of Shakespeare, viewing a beautiful Picasso painting. It gives you a certain optimism about the world and spreading joy and brotherhood and engaging as many people as we can. That's really what this piece is all about. I am thrilled that we have not only 4 wonderful, renowned soloists to sing the Beethoven Ninth with us, but also a wide selection of choirs, both from Drake University and from Simpson College. These are led by 2 remarkable musicians, Tim McMillan and Amy Beckman-Collier, and I'm very excited about working with this 200 plus voice choir. I can't wait to see you all with the Des Moines Symphony's first concerts of the season, September 24th and 25th at the Civic Center.